All right, we are live for Dynasty Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern, as per usual. I'm Brian with my co-host Josh. Josh, how you doing?
Doing well, feeling better than I have all week. Just getting over COVID, so finally negative.
All right, cool. Yeah, I remember I saw a headline the other day that said the mystery of why some people don't get COVID. I'm like, it's no mystery for me. I just barely leave the house. So, I would highly recommend being a hermit as far as that goes. Yeah. What do you think of our tentative interim intro music at the moment?
I like it. I like it with the graphic, showing kind of like Saturday Night Live. I really like that.
Yeah.
We're improving.
We couldn't use the thing that I made that with the like montage because #capitalism and YouTube software like listens for copyrighted music and then tells people to take videos down and things like that. But if you're a fan of my fun Saturday night montage, you can catch that as our intro music on the audio only format. If you're listening on the audio only format, please subscribe, rate, and review. That would do us a big favor. Tonight's episode is going to be 5 guys we're lower on than consensus. So, we had fits and starts and had to cancel a couple premiere episodes. So the goal was that we would have this out of the way before the season started, but it really doesn't matter too much because especially as a Dynasty podcast, I'm not reacting much to week one action really. So it's not like, this is, too late to do because the season already started. I mean, there's really nothing changing on this list that I had going into this, based on week one action. So
yeah, nothing changed based on one game for the people we picked, I think.
Yeah. All right. But before we get started with our topic for tonight and our lists of 5, speaking of #capitalism, we have a new sponsor going for 2, and that is No House Advantage. They are changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em style contests versus other people for the shot at winning $150,000 or more. Download the app and use the promo code GF2 and get a deposit match of up to $25. Choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for the correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win the big money every day. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Again, use our promo code GF2 at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app from the App Store and get a first deposit match of up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined. Because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. And where these guys play is the NFL. And where they are in our rankings is lower than most people. Josh, kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with one of the people I've been trying not to draft at all. And I'll start with Michael Thomas. This is in a dynasty aspect. I have him ranked 51st. Going for 2 consensus is 42nd, with the highest rating being 35, lowest 62. So there's someone even lower than me. Fantasy Pros, he's 42, DLF 45, and the DLF ADP is 31. So it's going pretty high up there. My reasons for not drafting Michael Thomas is he's 29 years old. He hasn't been productive or healthy and played a full year since 2019. When he does play, he's really good, but he also has chronic ankle injuries, and he's also had more than one hamstring injuries, and both of those can be nagging, come back, and keep you from being 100% or being able to give it 100% when you're on the field. And given his age, the injury history, he's not a very good valuable dynasty asset in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you do have him, I would try and sell high after his big game he had week 1. I don't think he's going to finish the season. You never know. He could, but I would still try and sell high while you can, because I just don't think there's much left for him in a dynasty aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I can dig it. I had this highlighted in yellow as a disagree, quote unquote. I mean, you have him at 51. I think I have him at 41, right? So, I mean, at this point, neither of us are looking at him as a top, dynasty option. Maybe he's your wide receiver 3 on a thin team, or hopefully your wide receiver 4, or lower. But I mean, yeah, I dig everything you said. I think, for me, the difference between 41 and 51 is really, is much less than, say, the difference between 21 and 31 would be, or even less than the difference between 11 and 21 would be, right? And also, like, I tend to, rank also in tiers as well they don't show up really on the websites that we rank on. So, there's also that too. And I think it comes down to, once you're in that range of players, the differences being smaller, and who do you really prefer, right? So, for me, I've got him above guys for the moment, like Juju and Amari Cooper and Allen Robinson and DeAndre Hopkins. But I could see the argument for him being lower than all those guys. Really, it's not too big a difference for me. I do think he's got good chemistry with Jameis Winston, who we both said last time was underrated. So it'd be interesting, but to see what he does this year. But yeah, I mean, especially in Dynasty, I'm not looking to acquire him really, unless I'm like a definite contender. And even then, I'm looking for value. You mentioned possibly selling him off of a spike week. Let me put you on the spot. What would you take for him?
Honestly, I'd be looking for picks. Someone in one dynasty league I'm in was looking for first. I don't know if I'd do that. I'd maybe try and trade for like a Nico Collins and then a second, something like that. Try and get a young player, but also a pick. But if anything, try and get a few picks for him. Try and set yourself up to draft some younger receivers in the next rookie draft.
Okay. So the first guy I'm going to go with is also a wide receiver. But before I do, honorable mention for Jalen Hurts here. I know folks are like, oh, our millions of fans are saying Brian's going to talk about guys he's lower on the consensus. He must be talking about Jalen Hurts. I've shit on Jalen Hurts for 2 weeks in a row now on this podcast. So I think people, kind of know where I stand on Jalen Hurts relative to consensus. I mean, Josh was quick to point out that PFF had him as the third ranked passer for the week. But I mean, whatever. It's 1 week and it's PFF, and who the heck knows, right? So I'm going to start with the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I definitely am lower than consensus on Amon-Ra, and often get pushback about him. I have him ranked 39. GF2 composite is 32, between 22 and 39. Fantasy Pros 27, between 19 and 35. 19, Jesus. DLF is 30. 18 and 36 is the split there. His ADP is 25 on DLF, and you have him ranked 16 spots higher at 23. Amon-Ra's good. He's fine. He's going to be a consistent player. But that's really, for me, all he is. Most of his 2021 production came without Swift and or Hawkinson, right? And I know Jeff and I have gone back and forth about that. Like, there's something to be said for when the guy was the only guy there, he did produce. So, sure, fine. But those guys are back. The offense added Chark and Jameson Williams. The pie will get bigger, and the team will probably score more total touchdowns. So he's going to be fine. But people are way too high on him, ranking him in like the 20s and stuff like that. I would not want him as my wide receiver 2 on a dynasty team. And I don't know that I'd even pay the early to mid second that he was going for in rookie drafts in 2021, especially with 2023 seeming like a pretty good class. So, I'm out on the Sun God relative to consensus. I look at where I have him. I look at where the community has him. And I see that as a sell in many cases.
Yeah, those points you made are good, and I do agree with most of those, but I do disagree when, probably like Jeff was saying, I think it's good that he was able to step up as a rookie when everyone else was down. He did get 912 yards as a rookie, and from week 13 on, he averaged 8.5 receptions on 11 targets, 93 yards, and almost a touchdown a game. And then he continued that momentum into 22 with Chark, and Hawkinson had 8 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. And I think even when Williams comes back, Chark and Williams probably be the outside receivers, and he'll probably sit in the slot. And I think he's good enough to be able to get open and probably be the most reliable target outside of just chucking the deep balls to DJ Chark and Jameson Williams. So I like him. But I also, if someone's way higher than you and you could sell him and get like a good return on your investment, definitely do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that he'll be consistent, and the other two will probably be more of like a spike week kind of thing, especially this year. But yeah, I guess I just don't love him as much as some other folks do. Who's the next person that you want to crap on?
Yeah, I'm gonna go, since I watched some of the Georgia game and they dominated. I'm gonna go with a rookie from Georgia, Zamir White. And the most obvious reasons that I'm kind of fading him is he's torn the ACL on both of his knees. One of them was in high school and one of them was in college. So they were, a little far back, and he's proven that he's healthy now. But he also has been proven to be a 2-down back through college and early in his pro career. And if he is the lead back next year, I don't think he has a receiving upside that Josh Jacobs has. And Jacobs is still an RB2 because of the receptions. And could be if he's the lead back and doesn't get receiving work, he could be an RB3 and very touchdown dependent. And that's just not something I'm looking for in one of my top running backs, and where he's going for a lot of people. And then I was looking at Fantasy Pros, and they said 2 ACL tears could lead to around a 25% drop off in longevity down the road in his career. Mm-hmm. So it's just asking for injuries like later to come on, or him to miss some time, not practice, not be as in sync. And I also wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders didn't draft another running back next year if they don't re-sign Jacobs. So it could be, if anything, a committee where he's not getting a full workload. And even that, where he's been going in drafts and stuff, I think it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment.
All right. Well, before we move on here, I know who Animus Maximus is. I don't know if I'm supposed to say, but forgot too. There were some drops there amidst the eight catches too. So that's something to watch as well with the Sun God. I know Animus is not big on the Sun God like I am. Thanks for chiming in though. So with Zamir White, I was a little surprised he was on your list, especially this low at 63. Right, I have him at 51, so I highlighted it as like a disagree. But like again, I'm kind of out on Zamir White relative to most people. I was surprised he was on your list because you were so much lower on Jacobs than I am, right? So I would think since you're lower on Jacobs, you'd be higher on White, but you seem to just not like the running game at all there.
Yeah, I moved Jacobs up a little bit after that episode, but I am just kind of out on that. I think they want a committee, and they're probably just going to run Jacobs into the ground. So I definitely like him more this year. And they just haven't really shown, without having an actual receiving back, to want to throw it to the running backs a ton. So I'm just kind of out on them. I'll see what they do. If he shows that he can be the 3-down back, I'll change my mind. You always got to be able to adjust based on what happens. But yeah, I'm just kind of out on their running backs for now.
Yeah. So let's see. Animus Maximus is, of course, my co-host on Dynasty Fever. It's Jesse Schneeman. Thank you so much for tuning in and for hopping in the chat there, Jesse. We appreciate it. Yeah. So for me, Zamir White, I just looked at him and I remember my notes from my rookie rankings going into the draft. 2-down guy, straight line runner, not great vision as far as I was seeing. So he was not somebody I was excited about. I was lower on him than consensus going into the NFL draft, and I remain so. But also part of that, too, is I think people were burying Jacobs far too quickly. So that's a combination there. So why don't I pop over to another Georgia running back, rookie running back, and someone that we agree on and that I know Animus does as well, and that's James Cook. You and I both have him ranked at RB 46, whereas the composite for going for 2 is 34, with a range of 26 to 46. excuse me. DLF has him at 32, between 27 and 39. Fantasy Pros at 28, between 24 and 38. And his DLF ADP is 30. Again, you and I have him at 46. We are low among all those numbers. Okay. So why do I not like James Cook? Why was I trading out of the area of the rookie draft that he was going in? Precisely because Sky Moore, James Cook, and George Pickens, who I might be a little wrong about, we're in, and Christian Watson, we're in that range, right? He's all traits, and and projection. It's not production. Now, I'm not saying that there are certain situations in which I'll excuse lower production, right? For example, a wide receiver on Georgia or a tight end on Ohio State, right? It's just or basically anybody on Michigan, just the way those offenses run. And Isaiah Pacheco too, who I was probably higher than consensus on going into the draft. He played for freaking Rutgers, and not only were they just bad because they're Rutgers, but they had a horrible offensive line. So I don't like, but when you start putting the constellation of factors together, the low production is concerning to me, right? He had a blow-up game on national TV. Did really well against Michigan in the playoffs, and I think that really vaulted him up and put him on people's radars. But let's also face it too. Animus and I have a friend, Dallas Hyder, who does a rookie podcast. He points out outside of that game, James Cook averaged 12 receiving yards per game in 2021, never eclipsed 12 carries in a game in college over 4 years, and only reached double-digit carries 5 times over that span. He's 190 pounds. He is slender and bad with contact. Didn't get asked much to do pass pro, obviously, but is especially bad at pass pro, I think, even for a rookie running back. He is a pass-catching, scat back, committee back, PPR-only asset that is getting way overrated. And my 2022 bold prediction on Dynasty Fever was that he would finish outside the top 5 rookie running backs in PPR scoring in 2022. Tell me why I'm right.
Yeah, you hit most of my points I was going to make. He was being drafted as if he was stepping into a prominent role in the Bills' offense, and the Bills' offense isn't the best situation for a running back to be in. They pass the ball a ton, and Josh Allen doesn't really dump it off to the running backs that much. And he never received a ton of work at UGA. His first touch in the NFL was a fumble. Not to overreact to that, but when he did get on the field, he basically just buried himself to third on the depth chart behind Zach Moss, who isn't that impressive either. But just showing that they trust Zach Moss more just shows that he's probably not ready to be that role yet. He still has potential, but I don't see him surpassing Singletary as an early down back. Singletary is a much better actual running back and pass protector. And I basically see him being like a Nyheim Hines, J.D. McKissick type player, which does have value, but not where he's being ranked and drafted.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who's the next guy you want to rain on the parade for?
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper. I've never really been the biggest Amari Cooper fan. He's already 28 years old, and he just seems, when I've had him on my teams, he seemed to be boom or bust for me. And when he booms, it seems to when I bench him after he's busted for 2 weeks in a row. And I'd rather have a guy who's more consistent going in my wide receiver roles. He always seems to be questionable, missing practice, has a bunch of different injuries, even though he doesn't sit a ton of games. Doesn't seem to be 100% that often. And right now, his situation with the Browns is just bad. Jacoby Brissett did not look good. He doesn't push the ball down the field, and he didn't look accurate at all, like getting the ball out. And even when Deshaun Watson comes back, he's going to be rusty. He hasn't played football much, and he looked horrible in the preseason. He's still good, but you're basically useless this year with Brissett and with Rusty Watson coming back at the end of the year for a Browns team that I don't know if they'll be pushing for a playoff spot. So, and he's going to be 29 next year. So as far as Dynasty goes, I have 0 shares of Amari Cooper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never been a big fan either. A couple of years ago, I remember the late, great Mike Taglieri had a good article and podcast segment about consistency, right? Week to week consistency. And Cooper was one of the poster boys for inconsistency, for spike weeks and then not being reliable, right? Add in the fact that, everything you said about the state of the Browns and missing Watson for all that time. He's, already 28, right? And so, again, that's not too old. It's not 28 for a running back, right? It's 28 for a wide receiver, but, it's a factor. I have him at 45. You have him at 47. The consensus numbers are 33, 36, 33, and 34. So we're definitely, below him, below consensus by a good amount. He's not somebody that I'm looking for in Dynasty. I actually had a contender as a contender got offered, I think it was like Cooper and a fourth for Olave, right? And that was a quick reject for me, for sure. Even though, Olave may not be the 2022 guy that you and I think he is, that remains to be seen, but that's not a deal I'm making. I have almost zero interest in Amari Cooper. So Julia is asking, where did I rank James Cook, top 3 rookie running backs in Dynasty? So no, he is not in my top 3. It's hard not to have Hall as 1 and Walker as 2 at the moment, right? I'm probably lower though on Walker than most people are. My 3rd is Brian Robinson. He kind of floated up as we were approaching the draft in my rankings. And then I kind of, the landing spot was iffy because I think it would cap both his ceiling and Gibson's ceiling. And, it remains to be seen, obviously, because he's out. But I think he's a complete back that has a skill set to demand more opportunity than my 4 and 5, which is Rachaad White. And I think my 5th at the moment might be Pierce, and then Algier, and then Cook might be my 7th. So I might be wrong about Pierce and Algier being ahead of Cook. It remains to be seen. But yeah, no, Cook is definitely outside my top 3 as far as rookie running backs go.
I also have all those people above James Cook. Also have Algier, Robinson, and Pierce ahead too. So you're not alone in that. I just think they're all going to be more productive early on than James Cook will. Probably better in the long term too.
So speaking of spike week wide receivers, I am lower than consensus on Mike Evans. I have him ranked at 29. Going for 2 is 17 between 15 and 29. Fantasy Pros at 21 between 18 and 30. DLF at 24 between 18 and 32 with a DLF ADP of 18. And my man Josh has him at 15, the highest number of all of those. So I think in some sense it's often, I think, a rankings philosophy question, in these sorts of things. If you're a person who a bigger part of your formula, so to speak, not that it's a formula, is immediate production, you're going to be a guy that floats, Evans higher up. I don't really do that, especially with wide receiver. I'm looking at definitely a 3-year window, whereas opposed to running backs, for me, it's a 2-year window. Tight ends 2, some, kind of 3 as well because of their longevity, but their volatility means kind of a 2-year window. So anyway, so Mike Evans for me, Mr. Consistency as far as the end of season numbers go, but week to week, it's a bumpy ride. You're going to have, the 2 catches for 11 yards, and maybe you get saved by a touchdown. He's also 29 already. Who knows what Brady's going to do from year to year as far as retirement goes. And I think to rank him where he is consensus-wise, you have to say that you like Evans in a 3-year window more than pretty much all the 2022 rookies, unless you're one of those people that has London high up, right? As well as Sutton and Judy, Gabe Davis, Devonta Smith, in some cases, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, and Hollywood Brown. And my response to that is WTF.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And he is a little bit of a spike player, but I've noticed because I have him on at least one team every year, the lows aren't quite as low as some other players. He can because of his touchdown equity, he does score a lot of touchdowns.
Mhm.
He's never had a season less than 8. So there's a good chance he will bail you out with a touchdown. And like he's had 1,000 yards in all 8 of his seasons. He's never had below that. He's never really had serious injuries. The least amount of games he's played is 13. And given that, I think there's still a few more years left in the tank, even though he is 29, like you said. And with Tom Brady there, he's had 13 and 14 touchdowns.
Mhm.
And in the past, I've projected Tom Brady leaving, but I'm just going to assume that Tom Brady's going to play a few more years. So as long as Brady's there, I'm going to keep having Mike Evans as a wide receiver too.
Mhm. Okay.
So I just think he's still got 2 or 3 years with the lack of injuries. There to go. He might slow down a little, but so did Larry Fitzgerald, and he was still pretty good. I don't think he's as good as Fitzgerald by any means, but if you can't avoid injuries, you can play into your 30s.
Yeah, for sure. That's true. I just, when I look at a 3-year window,
Mhm.
I have to factor in what the hell is Brady going to do. And I have to factor in that at the end of that window, he is going to be 32 and, whatever, Jameson Williams is going to be like, 26, right? So,
Yeah.
it's something that I take into consideration for sure. I actually have had a hard time moving him in the few places I have him, even to teams who are contending. They just don't like the age and the uncertainty with Brady, but we'll see. Who's your next guy?
My next one, and this was one that was kind of tougher for me, but because I don't really dislike him, I just have him ranked lower because I like other guys more. It's gonna be Kenny Pickett, and the only reason is he has small hands. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That is not the only reason. He only had 1 good year in college. All of his other years were pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
Like he has good scramble out of the pocket and like make a throw, but he doesn't have any rushing upside. And a lot of teams are looking for that for some design quarterback runs. He doesn't have that, or at least he didn't show it in college. He lacks anticipation on routes in college. Like he would wait for them to break and be open as opposed to anticipating the break and hitting them. And then the NFL, that's how you get interceptions because the DBs are a lot quicker. They're reading you a lot better. So I think he needs to improve on that. And in his first 3 seasons, he did have 23 fumbles at Pitt. So that might have something to do with his smaller hands. But anyone that's going to be turnover prone as a rookie or as a young quarterback, that's going to get you benched, especially when you have Mitch Trubisky.
Mm-hmm.
He did make smart throws in the preseason, but he didn't show the ability to push the ball down the field. And that can be problematic. Your completion percentage will look good, but you won't really get a ton of first downs. And then he might even be 3rd string. Mason Rudolph was rumored during the preseason to look better than him. And that in itself is kind of concerning, even though he is a rookie. So I give him a pass on that. But it just really comes down to me liking other rookie quarterbacks over him. I like Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, and Howell better than him. So because of that, he's just lower in my rankings than a lot of other people. But I don't dislike him. I just like other guys more.
Yeah, I'm definitely more bullish on Pickett. I totally hear you with the 1-year wonder, late riser production. And also, it needs to be said that he's a 24-year-old rookie. He's older than some quarterbacks who've been playing for 2 years, right? And all that's true, right? For me, I look at it as, okay, as a prospect and a skill set, is he more ready to step in and be an NFL quarterback than the other guys? And I think so, for sure. I am definitely not big on Desmond Ridder. I want to like Howell more. I can't. So I have him up at like 21, and you have him all the way down at 35. So for me, I'm bullish that he's going to take the field over Trubisky sooner rather than later. I'm bullish based on his college profile that he can push the ball downfield, even if we weren't seeing that in the small sample of the preseason. And I think he may be in a situation in 2022 where the team is not great and they want to see what they have in him, right? So let me just take a look at my rankings here, and I'll say guys that I have below him, right? And you tell me yes or no, right? Okay.
Yes or no? If I like him more or what?
So yes, you would have Pickett ahead of them, and my guess is I'm gonna hear a lot of no's, right?
Probably.
So Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Okay. Jameis Winston.
I mean, no. No. Yes, I would rather have them over Pickett. Is what.
Okay, so let's say the yes is you want the guy more than Pickett.
Okay,
right?
that makes more sense in my brain.
So then I'm going to hear a lot of yeses. Is what I
probably.
Expect. Aaron Rodgers, yes. Jameis Winston,
yes.
Okay. Daniel Jones,
very close, but yes.
Jared Goff,
yes.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's very close also, but yes.
Ryan
I'm at
Tannehill.
31. Ooh, yes, but I don't know. Yeah, yes.
Matty Ice.
Yep, I love Matty Ice. Yep.
Well, you're a Falcons fan. That doesn't count. Aforementioned Tom Brady.
Yes.
Baker Mayfield.
No, I'm not that. I don't really like Baker Mayfield all that much.
Malik Willis.
Yes, one spot ahead, but yes.
Okay. Ritter.
Yes, Ritter was one of mine. I was a little higher on him just for his athleticism.
Teammate Trubisky.
No, not in the Dynasty, but this year, yes.
Jimmy G.
No.
Marcus Mariota.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Also, Falcons fan doesn't count. So that was my. I have Pickens 21. That was my 22 to 35, which is where you have him. So we just are very different on sort of where he stands versus the rest of the group. That's
and I think a lot of that comes to just the overall philosophy. I have like a 1.5 to 2 year window as opposed to you looking more down the road. So I still see you getting a few years out of Rodgers, Brady, all those guys, Jameis.
Yeah. I mean, Jameis, I could see, I could definitely see that. That to me is arguable. I don't know really about Rodgers. I just, I don't know.
Well, after this year,
I
might have to move him even more down. I wrote him up as a bust this year, just in overall redraft, but I might have to move him down if this year keeps going like it is, because they just don't look good, and he doesn't look happy throwing to a bunch of young guys. So unless he gets moved,
So Julia is asking this Falcons fan why Ritter above Pickett.
He showed more athleticism as opposed, and I'm also a Notre Dame fan, and they played Pitt a few times, so I got to see Pickett play. Outside of his senior year, he was just honestly mediocre, and he could have finally figured it out in that 1 year, but it's just overall athleticism. I think it's going to be easier to surpass Mariota than it will be Trubisky, just because Mariota, even after the first game, he basically got most of his fantasy stats on running the ball. And I don't think he can sustain that given his age and injury history. And I think it's the Atlanta media is also already clamoring to the Atlanta coach about Desmond Ritter. And while they say it doesn't matter, that does weigh into it. So I just think he has a clear path of becoming a starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree that the quarterback in front of Pickett is better than the quarterback in front of Ritter, but the quarterback that is Pickett is far better than the quarterback that is Ritter, as far as I can tell.
And a lot of that is Mason Rudolph being there too, because say what you will, but
I'm not.
They keep talking about him.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. So Ritter for me is what, it's only a cheat code if you can pass. And going into the draft, there was a lot to ding about his passing, from his accuracy to his mechanics, to running too quickly. I hate Tom Brady the person, but he's made quite a career with zero rushing upside because he can pass, and that's what keeps you on the field. How many quarterbacks with rushing upside have come and gone, while Brady has remained, and other veterans too that are mainly, passers, right? So, yes, the NFL likes an athletic quarterback with rushing upside, but only if he can pass.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Who do I want to do next? Who do I want to pick on? Let's pick on Tyler Higbee. So I have him ranked at 32. You have him ranked at 24. Which is more in line with consensus. Going for 2 consensus is 22, Fantasy Pros 23, DLF 22, and DLF ADP is 28. The high number on Higbee is 19, which just makes me want to vomit. And the low number is 33, one below me. I don't like Tyler Higbee, and I really haven't ever liked him much. And now he's 29 years old. He's mostly had meh production throughout his career most years. He's what, 4th or 5th on as a pass option on the offense with an aging quarterback. He's 7 years removed from his 4.67 40-yard dash time and 106.9 speed score as a prospect. He's a declining asset, so it's not like there's a value there. To rank him at consensus means that in a 2 to 3 year window, you like him more than all the 2022 rookies besides McBride, and you like him more than Troutman, and in some cases for people more than Everett and Logan Thomas, which are, similar in age, but, I think much more, especially Logan Thomas, higher on the passing tree than Higbee. I just don't see it. Never liked him. Tight end 32.
No, that's fair. And the only reason I have him where I do is because for the smaller window that I'm at, I just don't think there's a ton behind him that's really going to contribute much now and maybe even next year. He does still get targeted at a fairly high rate. And McVay, for whatever reason, because I don't really like Tyler Higbee, McVay does like him and does want to give him the ball. Most games I watch, they try and at least one or two screen or pick plays just to try and get him the ball and get him involved. And he is still the starting tight end on, I don't know what it'll be this year, but a pretty good offense. And I only have him as a bench tight end, and I have him in like 2 leagues. And if he ever has to be my starter, I'm probably going to make a trade. So if anything, it might just be like a one, like filling in for a bye week, just 1 week.
Yeah.
But I'd still rather have Brevin Jordan or some other people to fill in for him.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, he had 11 targets week 1, and people are like, "Oh, Tyler Higbee had 11 targets week 1." What did he do with them?
Yeah, exactly.
And negative game script, and no running game that night, like because of the poor offensive line.
McVay likes him though, for some reason.
Yeah, but he's not stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So Julia asks me a dangerous question here. What do I not like about Tom Brady, the person? What about his personal attributes rub him the wrong way? Rub me the wrong way. So he is a smug, pretty boy cheater who thinks he's perfect, has shit politics, which to me makes you a shit person, but that's a whole other podcast.
Oh, Higbee could be leaning into that too.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, this is why I love that I not know this about some people, because it just makes them even more disappointing for me. He just had. So the Germans, German as a language has many like very exquisite compound words that capture the essence of something that it would take English a lot of words to do, right? Now, some of them are, the German teacher at my high school said, some of them are kind of made up and barely used, but they exist, right? They have one, and I don't know how to pronounce it, but it essentially translates to a face in need of a punch. That is Tom Brady.
I'll add one point onto that. Have you seen the way he kisses his son? It's kind of creepy.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
Like, it was like, yeah, it was.
I don't want to get into like families' practices and stuff like that, because people have different cultures and things.
But it's like a meme now, so it's very.
That's not funny either. Yeah, it's Come on. I don't know.
Also, 28-3. I just don't like him.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. And as when I was younger, I was a Jets fan, so there's sort of another reason to hate him. But honestly, it's not just the winning; it's him being a douche, and that's just not cool for me. Who's your next guy?
Yeah, I think this is my last guy. It's going to be David Montgomery. And this is also one, actually, which I should preface. I actually had a hard time finding people I was way lower on the consensus.
Mm-hmm.
But David Montgomery definitely fit the bill. I do like him as an RB3 or a flex, and maybe even an RB2 if you draft hero RB or zero RB and you just wait on running backs. But he's only had 1 year where he both rushed for 100 yards and had over 4 yards a carry. He averages under 4 yards a carry on his career, so he's not that impressive as far as like a runner goes. Player profiler comparison is Frank Gore, which is solid, but not something I want for a fantasy running back. Basically, just get what you can and fall forward, dependent on touchdowns. And Khalil Herbert came up last year, looked better, and is looking better even this year. So I think they might be shifting towards a committee just to make sure they both stay healthy. Like I said, he's not a big play threat. And already this year, which it was an ugly game, like ugly for weather, but he had 17 carries for 26 yards. So nothing just jumps out to make me want to draft him as like a RB2. Like I said, I take him as a flex or something, but it's just I'm just lower on him than most. He's just not that impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted this in yellow as a disagree, right? But again, like I have him 21 and you have him 31. I think that's a big enough difference. But, it's not like 7 and 17, right? So, for me, when I look at his consensus rankings of 17, 20, 19, and 20, and then me at 21, what you're looking at, I think, is an adjustment for the fact that, the offense isn't great. He's not super great as far as a receiver goes, although, probably better than most people think.
He's solid.
That there is Khalil Herbert there, and that his contract is up at the end of this year and they haven't renewed him. I think all that is kind of baked into the fact that I have him down at 21. You have him down at 31 though, right?
Yeah, so I'll say who I have ahead of him.
Yeah, that means you have a number of guys ahead of him who I probably don't, right? And I'm wondering, who those guys are. Maybe we can talk about that for a second. And also he's like your Amon-Ra for me. So, maybe a sell and what would you sell him for? So let's talk about folks that you have ahead of him.
Yeah, so I'll just go up the list at 30. So I'll go 30 down to 29. I have Tyler Algier at 30. Then I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs, Singletary, Antonio Gibson. I have Ken Walker at 24. Then Zeke, which a lot of people might disagree with. Chase Edmonds, Elijah Mitchell, James Conner, Aaron Jones, and then A.J. Dillon. And then the rest of that is just the pure top guys. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I'm very comfortable drafting all those over Montgomery. Yeah.
So for me, the Aaron Jones and James Conner is probably like how much of a role does age play in rankings? I think I have them at like 25 and 29, right? The ones that I find the most arguable for me, at least, are Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary, Damian Harris, and Tyler Algier. I find it hard to make a case for putting Monty above those guys. So just for flavor, that's kind of where I'm at with those guys. So, okay. So now you see the community is, even though they're kind of down on him relative to where he used to be, they're definitely higher on him than you are. What are you trying to get for him?
Well, I'll just go off what I was able to get for Aaron Jones, who I have ranked similarly. Mm-hmm. Like you saw it on Twitter, I traded Aaron Jones for Elijah Moore and then a second, and I gave back a third from 2024. So I would try and go with something like that. Since I have Algier ranked higher, I'd try and grab Algier. I don't know if I'd probably do it straight up since it's Dynasty, because I just think Algier has a clearer path. Patterson being in his 30s. Williams is already hurt. Mm-hmm. So that's not even me being a Falcons fan. Before he went to the Falcons, I liked Algier. He was very good in college, showed he can be a bell cow back. So I'll just try and trade it for a younger rookie, maybe even Brian Robinson in a pick. But I'd definitely try and get someone younger than him, because Montgomery's not that old. Mm-hmm. He's only played 3 years, I think, before this one.
So I think with Algier, I think don't do it straight up because most people are going to have Monty above Algier. So I would try to get more
that's
to
what I was saying.
but,
Just because I do doesn't mean other people
yeah.
do. You could probably get more than just straight up for.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of started second guessing myself.
Right on. Yeah, I hear you. It's interesting, right? He's starting to be like Amon-Ra in the sense that like there's people, even though like Amon-Ra's ascending and Montgomery's probably descending, like there's people who are willing to say, okay, he does enough that he's going to solidly be in like the RB2 or for the Sun God's case, wide receiver 2. And then there's people who are like kind of starting to just be out on him. And I think there's a camp that looks at Khalil Herbert and says, that's the future and that future is coming sooner than people think. And, but here's the thing, right? Like Montgomery was averaging 1.5 yards or whatever a carry in week 1. They still fed him the ball 17 times compared to Herbert's, 9 times, right?
Yeah.
Like they like Montgomery. They rely on him. He's going to get opportunity.
Yeah. How much of that was because the weather conditions, the field was bad because Elijah Mitchell in that game tore his knee up because the ground was so wet, couldn't get footing. So I'm personally not looking too much into that because they'd rather run him and if he gets hurt, as opposed to. So that might be one way to look at it, but
interesting. Okay. I mean, yeah, there's not much you can take away from that sloppy game as like something, to really, make a conclusion on. I'm thinking for me, okay, fine. In fairer weather, then it would be what, like, I don't know, 11 touches to 6, right? Like, I don't know, but it just seems like that they still want to rely on him at least for now.
But you got Justin Fields running too. It could take some away from both of them.
So I'll end with a running back as well. This is probably as spicy as the Amon-Ra, but I'm probably closer to consensus on this guy than I am when it comes to the Sun guy. But this is Travis Etienne. I have him ranked at running back 18, right, which is actually higher than I had him just a month or so ago, right? So I don't like him that much. His consensus is right around 13, right? So he's got 13 for going for 2, 13 for Fantasy Pros, 13 for DLF. 15 for DLF, and his DLF ADP is 13. So people kind of like him right around that range. I have him below at 18. You have him up at 10, which I find interesting. So let me make my case here for him. Going into the draft, he was starting to slip to people's RB3 in the class. A lot of people, were starting to put Javonte ahead of him, and of course Najee as well, right? He got first round draft capital, and people, were a little jazzed by that. But it's Urban Meyer, and so you have to take a grain of salt with Urban Meyer's judgment, I think, right?
Absolutely.
As he showed, because he's gone, right? Until last week, he had not played a snap in the NFL, regular season, of course. And, people were already having him close to RB1 range. He's coming back from Liz Frank, which is, something to think about, right? It's a foot injury that has nagged people before. So I don't love that for a running back. He doesn't have great vision. He's not really great for, between the tackles, 2-down work. He isn't just a pass catcher like James Cook, but he's not a 3-down workhorse. He's still got J-Rob there to eat into his production, and I believe, too, Snoop Connor on the goal line at some point. The O-line isn't great. The overall offense isn't great. I think to rank him at consensus means you like him in a 2-year window ahead of, for most people, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, Akers, Jacobs, and Derrick Henry. I just don't see it, but this also might be, one of those things where it comes in, like, what is your rankings philosophy, right? What do you think of the other guys around him, right? To me, there's a stretch of guys in that range that are similar in a tier where I have him. And it's just a matter of, pick your poison out of those guys. Guys like, for me, Monty, Dillon, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, and guys I mentioned before, like, Akers and Jacobs and, Antonio Gibson and Elijah Mitchell, right? There's kind of like meh set of backs that are like outside the RB1 range, but not, down in like the 30s, where it's just kind of like, who do you like out of those guys? And I just happen to have Etienne at the lower end of that range, and people have him at the higher end, but I think that's meaningful. Tell me why you have him at 10. What do you love about him?
So since he didn't play last year and he got hurt before even the preseason started, I basically kind of have to treat him as a rookie and going off college. So in college, he averaged 7.2 yards a carry and 78 total touchdowns in 4 years. His junior and senior years, he showed good receiving ability and also rushing ability. So I do think he's a good 3-down back, and he can take the first and second down rushing attempts. Not so much between the tackles, but in like a spread offense where he's handing the ball off at a shotgun, running off tackle, stuff like that. And he does look healthy already coming off that injury. I mean, time will only tell with that, whether that nags him later on. But as of now, through practice, preseason, and even week 1, he's looked healthy and pretty explosive. And also in week 1, Lawrence missed him wide open in the end zone for a pass. And he also dropped one right at the goal line. So he could have potentially had 2 receiving touchdowns in his first game, which I think would have definitely boosted him up more. But since he hasn't played, I'm basically going off his explosiveness. And, that might be somewhat of a committee, but the fact that they're willing to throw in the ball already, is a good sign. And he averaged 11 yards a carry in week 1. It was only 4 carries, so take that with a grain of salt because it's very, very small sample. But watching the tape, he was able to make people miss, get first downs and run pretty good. So I just like him until I'm proven otherwise. And if he can stay healthy, I'm scooping him up pretty late and very happy with it.
Mm-hmm. And he's a guy who I'm happy to sell in a lot of cases because people are so high on him, right? I think I can get good value, especially because of where I have him. Right.
I'd probably be the one to do it with.
Yeah. We got to get in a league together. What are we doing?
We do.
I don't know. We hooked up a little too late in the off season to get one going, but maybe we can do like a late startup or something like that.
But I'll touch on guys I have after him because you said behind him I have Kamara, Derrick Henry, Cam Akers, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, and then I have Dobbins. I really like Dobbins, but the fact that he's so slow to come back kind of scares me. But when he gets back, he's elite. And then Fournette and AJ Dillon. So I'm actually happy with where I have him ranked.
I could make the case for a couple of those guys behind him, but for me to say I like him better than all of those guys in a 2-year window, I can't say that. But
which James Robinson did look good also, so that does slow me down a little. I didn't expect him to be this healthy and be used as much as he was. So might be a committee there.
Yeah. But, Chubb's probably going to take a ding in value, because he's going to be a year older. The offense isn't going to be great, right? He's never been much of a pass catcher. Kamara, I think, is a good sell. Winston is not Drew Brees. Like, we're not getting check down Charlie here, right? No. Like, they're going to scheme for Kamara because he's a dynamic player. But Jameis Winston is more than happy to throw to Michael Thomas and beyond, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, watch out for Kamara, because if he's not getting the increased, like, traditional running back touches that he was this year, and he's not getting the pass catching that he's gotten in the past.
No, I'm with you there.
That's kind of, so I could easily see those guys dropping for me. I just have like Jacobs, Akers, Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell kind of in between those guys and Etienne at the moment. But again, I think that tier of guys is pretty fluid and could look different at the end of the year, for sure. Yeah. All right, folks, that just about does it for us when it comes to guys we're lower on than consensus. Let's take one more question here from Julia, though, for our resident Atlanta fan. How did you like Arthur Smith's route design for Drake London in week 1? And how comes the Saints cornerbacks weren't able to stay close to him? And what cost Atlanta the win in week 3? So take any of those questions that you want and tell us about it, because I am lower on London than consensus. So I'm looking for a reason to like him.
Yeah, so I'll start out with saying I don't like Arthur Smith. I didn't like the hire. Drake London, he actually has a very good separating ability for being a bigger guy who's not fast, like down the field fast, but he's shown really good agility and route running ability to be able to separate more than I gave him credit for initially, because he wasn't even my highest receiver. I liked Olave and Dotson a little more than him, but he has been impressive in that. It seems to be like it's hard to cover. I think they need to open it up a little more, use him more like they did Julio, especially in the goal line. Let him pin up some receivers, like box them out, kind of like Jimmy Graham used to do, use his body against smaller receivers. So I think he just knows how to use his size, knows how to use his skill set to get open, and he knows what he's good at. And I tweeted out, the Falcons are going to Falcon, especially against the Saints. They're going to blow leads. For whatever reason, they stop doing whatever is working for them on defense, and they just play. It seems like they drop out of like the press and blitz, and they just set back and just kind of let them take what they can, and it always comes back to bite them in the ass. So while I'm a Falcons fan, the Falcons are very frustrating. Every time they have a lead, I just assume they're going to blow it, and it's going to be a close game, and they did not let me down in week 1.
Okay. I guess so.
Very jaded.
I hear you. Okay, so that'll do it for us. Time for plugs. Josh, where can they find you on the Twitters and where your work is?
Yeah, as my name says, it's at Rotonaut, Rotonaut. You can find all my articles on goingfor2.com as well as rankings. I haven't been able to do my weekly articles because I've had COVID and I've been out of it for a whole week. But starting week 3, I will have 10 things to look forward to each week. So next week by Thursday, I'll have 10 things to look for in week 3, and hopefully going forward the rest of the year, barring any setbacks. You can find all that at goingfor2.com.
All right. So you can find me on Twitter at ffjunkie_. Dynasty rankings and articles at goingfor2.com, including I'm finally wrapping up my 10 commandments of Dynasty trading. And that'll be a fun one because, for whatever I'm known for, I'm probably known for getting a little too upset about trade etiquette. And you can
had
find
a good thread about it.
I put a lot of labor into that.
You
one,
did.
So
it was well done.
Selection that went on with that. Yeah. So you can find me also on the Dynasty Fever podcast, which is audio only for the moment, and that's with our friend Jesse Schneeman, who was in the chat earlier. And you can follow that show at Dynasty Fever Pod. Tonight, stay tuned. In a few minutes on this very YouTube channel, you're going to see the IDP Cover Zero podcast, 9:00 Eastern. You can hop into the Going for Two Discord too. It is on and popping. Lots of channels, lots of good chats, different formats and trades and analysts and articles and all sorts of fun stuff in the Going for Two Discord. You can get there easily by going to goingfor2.com, and then a little Discord purple thing will probably, I think, be in the lower right when you're on that website, and you can pop in there. If you're listening to this on audio only, please subscribe, rate, and review. It would do us a good solid. And that's a wrap. Thanks for being with us.